So we're going to do a quick video here on what I think happened to Crook Castle. So what I've got here is a Photoshop file I put together. It's got multiple layers with different maps and different overlays. And what we're looking at here is Crook Parish. So here is Crook Castle in 1764. The black represents the castle. Here is perhaps a courtyard. Here is a field with something growing it. Simon Dowland seems to think it's an orchard. It could be a potato farm. It's hard to know. And here is a laneway and a pathway you can see going down to the road. Now I want to give credit to Simon Dowland before I start this because he did a blog entry on the Crook Castle earthworks on his blog a few years ago, and I'll link that in the description below, so be sure to check that out. So Crook Castle is a really old castle. I covered it in my last video, By Hook or by Crook Part 1. It's been around since the Norman invasion of Ireland, and as you can see, up to 1764, quite a substantial amount of it remains. So just zoom in for a second there. So come 1837, there was only a tiny portion of the castle remained. Now it's still quite a bit more than what's available today. If you read the Ordnance Survey letters, it gives you the description of the castle walls and the length of them. So they were definitely substantially longer than they are today, but they are still a lot less than they were in 1764. Now come 1888, you can see it's really just this corner segment. It's not far off of what we see today, except for this wall here, this bottom wall here was a good bit longer, and this wall here probably stuck up a bit more. And then we'll zoom back out again, and we'll go to present day. So present day, you've got this little corner segment of the castle, so not much of it's left. So what happened to Crook Castle? Well, what we need to look at is the creation of the Genevan settlement. So down the road from Crook Castle is Geneva Barracks. So there's Crook Castle. You've got to go down this road, and just down past here is the Geneva Barracks. So Geneva was set up as a settlement for refugees from Switzerland. They were given a site just south of Passage to create their own settlement, and the plans for the settlement fell through, but the original walls were built and they still stand to this day, and that was converted into a barracks. I'll go into that in more detail on my video. But the original plan for the settlement, you can see here, these are from a correspondence on the creation of the settlement from 1783, I believe. And they are listed here in the Journal of Waterford and South East of Ireland Archaeological Society from 1912. And they have some letters that go back to 1783 talking about the proposition of a Geneva settlement. And if you want to look through them, you can just search for that on Google. You'll find it, and you can read through the correspondences. Just in brief, some of the things they touch on was that Crook Castle had 2 wells. They were concerned about having ample water source. So if we look here in the 1788 map, you can see that indeed Crook Castle has 2 wells. There's St. John's Well, and there's another well there. St. John's Well today is covered up by some growth, as is this well here, but St. John's Well is easier to access. They also talked about the fact that they didn't want to build over a Catholic burial ground, which you can see here. And they also didn't want to dispossess 40 labourers who lived in the area from their homes. So there was some, the locals who were living here, 40 of them would have been displaced for the creation of the settlement if it went ahead in this first proposition. And they discussed the fact that they had potato farms and stuff like that. So that's why I think that maybe perhaps the orchard that is listed here is maybe it's a potato farm. It's hard to know. We're just speculating. So if Crook was listed here in the first proposition, then it would make sense that they knocked Crook before making the settlement. So they initially wanted to build in Crook, so they knocked Crook Castle to make space for the settlement, and then ultimately they decide against it and move it down the river. And that would explain why so much of the castle has disappeared between 1764 and 1837. So that castle stood for centuries and was relatively still intact up until the mid 1700s, and then come 1837, which is what, 70 odd years later, the castle is pretty much relegated to like a northwest and southwest wall, and that's it. So we'll have a look at some of the artworks and see what we can see today. So this is a 3D model by Simon, and I've scaled it and rotated it as best I can to match. So you can see here, this is sort of an entrance way. There's a little ramp there and a little ramp there you can see. And interestingly enough, if you line up the pathway, which goes down the dead center of the laneway, look at that, it lines up with the ramp. Put it a bit longer, it goes straight through the next ramp. So it's clear to me this is an entrance. This is probably a gate. These are two large walls and another gate here. Now, this here, we'll have a look at this in more detail in one of Simon's videos. Let's just have a look through here. I want you to look out for this area here because a square stands out, and to me that looks to be like a Norman tower house or a gatehouse perhaps. You'll see it stand out. Now there's a little ramp. Do you see that ramp coming out there? We'll play it forward a bit more. And then you can see the second ramp here come out. It depends on the angle of the light. Now here you can see that there's definitely square, and see this deviates. So you've got some walls here. This may not be a wall, maybe just a natural dip in the field, but these are definitely walls. So you can see this sort of deviates from the rest of this here. So this could be perhaps a courtyard. This is a gated entrance, and this could be a gatehouse or a tower house. And then you've got the original castle here, which was connected to a wall here, perhaps through like some sort of corridor. And then the original castle would have come in over here and coming up here and across there. Now, Simon also pointed out that he believes this church graveyard was extended out to here, and we can have to play through the video to make that stand out. You can kind of see you're kind of looking for a circle, like a sort of arc there. And we might need to change the angle. It's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see it there. There's a kind of circle going around. So we can see that there was at some point quite a substantial set of buildings here in Crook. You've got the current castle, but perhaps this was a Norman tower house or a gatehouse. It may just be part of the wall, but to me it looks like a tower house. And then you've got the entrance going all the way down. So it's interesting to look at. It's definitely interesting to look at, and it's sad to see the castle is relegated to pretty much just a corner of the original castle. A couple other things. There's the well. I've overlaid this also. So there's St. John's Well. There was a pond here listed in 1833, which you can see there. And that follows, you look at this hedge line, it follows the hedge line all the way down there to the river. Interesting. The castle ruins. There's the present day castle ruins. I've kind of highlighted in red so it's easier to see. That was the castle ruins in 1837, and the castle ruins as per the map. Now I think this was probably a little bit larger. It's hard for me to scale this because this is based on the 1764 map, which is not to scale. So the area Crook is quite interesting. It was interesting for me. Once I finished my video project, I kind of researched a little bit more, and that's where I came up with all this stuff. So definitely an interesting look at. And my next video, By Hook or by Crook Part 2, will be out hopefully in the next few days. I'm just waiting on a copyright dispute to resolve in regards to one of the audio tracks I was using. And once that's resolved, I'll make it available on YouTube. So subscribe if you haven't already and check that out. So that's Crook Castle and the area Crook Castle, and a hypothesis as to why the castle no longer exists. So thanks for watching.